Welcome back everyone. In the first video, I made a medieval tower from EPS and some basic material. Now I'll turn it into this diorama. So let's start. So I'm starting this with cutting a foam core to make a base of 45 centimeters long and 23 centimeters wide. Once I have the base, I now decide on the layout, where the riders will stand, the road will lead, and the rock faces will be. My first object to build is going to be the rock faces. I'm using the same leftover EPS here. Since I don't have a hot wire cutter, I'll hack and slash the EPS randomly. Superglue softens and melts the EPS. It helps me smooth the surface, but it's hazardous as the fumes coming off the surface are toxic. I'm using Vallejo's black surface primer and the gray tone I mixed off the camera. Applying watered down glue to flock the dirt. I'm using watered down glue again to add static grass. Also adding pebbles and my homemade foliage in various tones of green. Now it's time to work on the surface. For the road part, I'm using regular soil to separate it a bit more from the rest of the surface, and dry brushing with a very light brown to make it stand out. Using regular transparent glue here to start adding foliage, rocks and pebbles. Backyard is always my go-to source for rocks, pebbles, twigs and so on. I utilize twigs to represent woodlogs. It's now time to prepare the surface for grass application. I'm leaving a video in the description showing how you can make your own static grass applicator. I'm putting the rock faces where I wanted them to be, and later on I decided to dry brush a bit of a yellow on the grass close to the road. I'm using French Knight figure set of Zvezda. For the figure painting I'm using Vallejo's black primer, white, old wood, new wood, cavalry brown, leather belt, oily steel, flat flash, flash wash and blue craft paint since I didn't have any blue in Vallejo line at hand. I'm working on adding pegs for the figures for them to stand safely on the diorama. Since some of the figures were chopped off and glued back together, it's a very delicate part of the project. Building a stable for the horses as a second object of the diorama with some sticks and cardboard. Cutting strips of cardboard for roof tiles and slicing them halfway to create shingle look. This is the first time I'm trying this technique, but I ended up being happy with the result. One thing about me is that I'm terrible with angles and measuring, so as always I'm completely eyeballing the angles here. Using black primer mixed with a drop of new wood, then new wood for the wooden parts, red for the shingles, and dry brushing with old wood. Making a well as the third object of the diorama for the middle of the camp with the same method using leftover foam. I'm using Vallejo's black primer and regular white here. Looking back, it's a bit of an overkill. I could have used cheaper craft paints for this. Later on, I decided that it should have a roof, then started building one. Again, using sticks, toothpick, etc., and same idea with the shingles for its roof. In addition, I made a tiny, scale-appropriate bucket of the camera. I'm taking a break from making accessories and going back to work on ivy vines on the tower's sides. Milliput Superfine is my medium for it. Cut an equal amount of both parts and knead it until you see the colors are completely mixed. Once done, cut off pieces as thick or long as you want. It completely dries in about 3 hours and then they are ready to be painted. I'm dry brushing them with old wood paint to make them stand out a bit more. Once the paint job is done, it's time to add flock on it. So for the last object, I decided that it would be a good idea to make some sort of a crane on top of the tower. I completely made it up. It's not an engineering marvel, and I'm sure it wouldn't work in a real life situation. But yeah, it represents a crane. I thought of ways to make some sort of a net, but any solution I found just didn't work for this scale. So I used a dried wet towel to represent some sort of a burlap. Looking back, the only thing I could have done to this is to put some sort of a weight in it to make it look saggier. I turned the leftover lenses from the figure set into flag posts for the entrance. Made some random boxes, crates and barrels from leftover balsa wood of the camera. Again, this shield was left over from the set, so I hung it to the entrance. Now that I'm done with all the objects, it's time to put everything together on the diorama base. drilling holes to spots where I want the figures to stand. I modified some of these figures off the camera into a standing position. Now that the riders are in their places, it's time to add the trees. Putting on the last tree, and I am done. Thank you guys so much for watching the second episode of this project. In the next and final episode, I will be making a frame and a transparent display case for this diorama. If you like my content so far, please don't forget to like this video and make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.